Hello everyone, welcome to this message. So as our first card today, we get this card here. So let's see. So what this talks about is at this image that we are seeing on the camera, right? That this is happening in an empty airport terminal at 3 a.m. So it's kind of fascinating. So there's something about that the space in which this is happening is a space where you are actually between chapters and where nothing at this kind of space that you are in is actually permanent. So you are in between two places, two in between two chapters, and it is related to like the environment would be an empty airport terminal at 3 a.m. So yeah, very specific. So let's see what this is about. Um, so what are we seeing? We're seeing a knight, which is interesting because we were talking about that yesterday. A knight who is bowing, I guess, who's bowing, putting his knife down, and you have all of these computer screen, no, like these, all of these TV screens. So let's see, bowing down before these TV screens. Um, Maybe there are multiple shows that he could watch, perhaps. He's bowing down to all of these TV shows that he could potentially watch. And he's in between chapters, right? So maybe this could talk about many different kind of channels he could put on, right? So maybe if you can switch channels, it's a little bit like different timelines, I guess, right? So switching channels in terms of choosing what's going to come next, perhaps. So it could have a little bit of a bit of a sci-fi vibe to it as well, right? So if this would be a little bit of a sci-fi kind of place, then you are currently choosing which channel you want to switch to, or maybe you have multiple channels you could you could move between, perhaps. Um, Multiple timelines you could move between, however you want to see that. And this person is like bowing as a knight in front of these these different channels. So of course, like a channel could be you could be um, connecting perhaps to the past, which could be this, right? Maybe you could choose to the channel of the past. So maybe different timelines as relates to like different eras, for example. Like I would like to switch to the era of it would be like a history channel or whatever, right? So maybe it could be like I would like to switch to uh, a program on for example, like the Wild Wild West, right? Like ancient China, it could be anything, right? So you could move between um, timelines in terms of like different eras. So you could switch between different eras, perhaps. Um, what else could you be switching from? Perhaps this could be like you could be switching to a more alien channel, perhaps. So maybe you could start picking up on much more of like other like connecting to certain beings, for example, right? So connecting to different channels in terms of different beings. So you could see it like that, or like alien channels could also just be unknown realities that are unknown to you, right? Different life experiences that are completely unknown to you that that you could be switching towards in terms of like program, right? Like timelines. And this makes me think a little bit about learning. So you could also switch between different learning channels with your remote control, right? Maybe I want to learn from the past. I could learn from this. I could learn from that, right? So you have many different things like abilities, sources that you could learn from as well. So Yeah, some also have static on it, it seems. Some channels are broken. So some channels are off as well, it seems. And you are bowing to that. So what does that mean? That maybe you are in service of that? Course, this person is already coming from the past because he is a knight of the past, right? Maybe if he is like, he could be a forefighter of, for example, protecting something Christian, perhaps with the cross here, right? So maybe he is protecting something Christian. He's just protecting something because knights protect something, right? An ideal, a principle. They defend the king, right? Like they fight for a purpose, right? They defend and protect a purpose. So maybe you are bowing down to whatever channel wants to be chosen, perhaps. Maybe you're surrendering to whatever channel wants to be chosen, as to what would be serving humanity best next. So you could see it like that as well. But it's happening in an empty airport terminal. So an airport terminal also means that you are already between chapters, right? So nothing is permanent here. So you are in between chapters, which is kind of like in between zapping, perhaps, right? And so you could take a flight off, right? Like you could take any kind of flight in the morning and you're like in that in between space where there are no flights. And like in the morning, you could take a flight perhaps. So maybe you could immediately take a flight. I don't know if airports actually are still open at 3 a.m. because I've never been in an airplane or in an airport for that matter. So yeah, so it could have something to do with that. Um, let's see. And then the other image is this one, which is also very interesting. Um, and this takes place in the middle of a vast desert under a blistering sun, which is also very interesting because this image shows a watery scene. So this is happening underwater. So it means like if there is like a vast desert, then it would mean that if you would come above water, that would be a vast desert there under a blistering sun. So what could that mean? Um, it has to do with the wildness of nature being quite overwhelming, and anything that pertains to nature putting us through tests, right? The overwhelming nature of the overwhelming of the overwhelming nature of nature, right? So let's just see. Um, yeah, it talks about survival. Um, Yeah, that nature sometimes doesn't care about what you were planning on doing, right? So if you would say to nature, like, I have this 5 year plan for my life, then nature might not agree with that plan, right? So it's a little bit like the unpredictability of nature, right? So you never, so for example, you could have a plan, but sometimes life just moves in a different direction, and that great plan of yours is never going to happen, right? So this has to do with anything that's unpredictable like that, like nature is a force in and of itself, right? That you don't have control over. And it could also talk about the idea of survival, you having to survive. It could talk about your primal truth as well, the idea of being insignificant. So let's just see. So this is happening in the middle of a vast desert under a blistering sun. So it could be that so as you are going above water, there is a desert happening. So you are safely in the water. You're in a cool place, right? While there is a vast desert out there, um, the scorching sun. So that would definitely be a place where you need to survive. So you are. Could this indicate that you are out of survival? Could be the case because you're in the water where it's safe and cool, right? Like kind of. Well, we don't really know if it's safe, but like it looks kind of safe. So maybe you're out of survival mode right now. So it could be that. Maybe you are out of survival mode. And maybe because you are out of survival mode, you are able to switch to many more channels, you could say. So maybe there is an opening up of many more channels that you could be switching between. So maybe you're on like literally like it could be as you were in survival, right? So as you were like walking the desert in the blistering sun, as you were merely surviving, then in that place there was most definitely a choice. There was just the choice of survival, right? And there was also, um, I guess, like your remote control likely had very little buttons on them, I guess. And now, as you are coming out of survival mode, you have all of these buttons all of a sudden on your remote control. So you have so much more to access, and it could also have something to do with intentionality, because it, like, of course, this person also like surrenders to the process, right? But there are more choices, right? There are more options available to you. I think it talks about that. But at the same time, it is the channel will be picked that will serve the best purpose for humanity, right? That will serve uh that will be serving God in the best possible way. So and you are in between chapters, so you are about to, it's kind of like someone else has a remote control, right? So there are multiple options, and like someone else has a remote control and says, like, just like nature does as well, like you can have the best made plans and then nature uh, decides something else for you, right? So sometimes things happen, life happens to you, and you just go in a different direction, right? And there's something about that someone else, I think, has a remote control and can choose between which channel. And you are surrendering to that. You are surrendering to whatever wants to be perhaps channeled through you, whatever wants to be picked next in terms of an experience. So you are surrendering to this process as a knight uh, serves the king, right? As a knight serves God, because it makes me think about with this cross, right? As a knight serving God, and like you are being of service, right? You're being of service to humanity. You're being of service to God, and God can choose the channel, right? Whatever wants to be picked, and there's something that there is much more that there are much more of options available to you. I think now that you are no longer in survival mode, so you're not just merely surviving anymore. Now there's the luxury of many different experiences, perhaps, right? Such as see. So maybe you're also allowing yourself to be insignificant as well, right? So to be insignificant as it relates to nature, because it also has to do with that nature doesn't really care about your ego, right? So which is this person's like surrendering their ego, in a sense, like they're surrendering, like, God, I surrender my personality, I surrender my like, use me, right? Like, allow me to be of service, um like whatever experience you want me to be it's kind of like there's this idea about on the it seemingly relates to the message from yesterday about where we had the knight, right? The knight in terms of being of service to God, service to the spirit, service to God, right? Service to humanity. So it relates to that earth angel knight concept, right? But at the same time, there's also the movie theory, the movie palace is a little bit there too, with all of these screens, right? So it could be that you are allowing God to choose whatever experience is going to happen next, whatever is going to be expressed through you, um, so that God can choose the channel, right? So that's pretty much what this is. And there's much more. There are much more options available to you now that you are out of survival mode. So let's see. And it also moves you away from human civilization, human society completely. So this card here, right, relates to that notion of be like this stripping away this strips away human society and human civilization completely, which is a little bit like the deserted monastery, right? So saying to, like, so you are serving God in a sense that where you are removing yourself from society for the purpose of God, for serving humanity, for serving the spirit, for serving God. And also, you're moving away from civilization completely. So maybe this could talk about you moving away from society in a sense, like maybe embracing an older era. It could be that you are going to be learning from an older era. Maybe you're going to be moving into very unknown places, And these unknown places maybe also have something to do with an older era. So there is something about that if we connect these three concepts together, because these are like different eras that you could be living, right? So living a lifestyle that is very similar to a different era to be living in. So it could be that. It could be learning as it relates to older eras. It could be unknown experiences as well, alien, right? Unknown experiences as it relates to these older eras, right? So, or anything like you can make all kinds of combinations here. So let's see. And so you are now out of survival mode. So that's very interesting. But you are camouflaging yourself, right? Because these mushrooms are blending into their environment. So I do think that you are going to be um, um, serving God in such a way that you will be completely camouflaged in a sense because your being is completely surrendered to God. So probably as you're moving forward, your being is so much surrendered to God that God can express whatever God wants to express in any kind of way, really. And God has many opportunities for you to be expressing as. So you are going a little bit like you could say like this is like a knight being so much of service that they are moving away to the background and like just expressing what God wants to express. So just being a channel pretty much, but a channel for many channels. You could say like whatever God wants to express is going to be channeled through you, right? It's going to be what how you're going to be expressing in the world. So you're like going to be completely blending into the environment in the sense that you are completely surrendering to whatever God chooses to be to express Himself as in terms of a channel, right? So in terms of a an expression of self, I would say an expression of self, which can be how you dress, how you communicate, how you act, how you think, what you do on a day. It could be anything, right? Everything is surrendered to God, and it will all serve a purpose from this point forward, right? So, and you are in between chapters, and God is choosing the chapter here. So let's see. So you are completely surrendered, and yeah, and then there is a spider on top. So let's see the spider. This could be a spider. Well, I don't think a spider is parasitic in nature. Well, it looks a little bit like, but I don't think that that's what it is. I think you are going to be, perhaps makes me think like a spider is an animal that connects to the web, you could say, right? So you are going to be completely blending into, for example, the web of every person on Earth, for example, like the collective web. You could be starting to connect with that and blend with that completely. So you're going to be expressing yourself in however God wants to express Himself, literally. And how you're going to be seeing your lens is also going to be completely chosen by God. So this is a complete surrender, which means that God, like how your perception of the world will be God. It's kind of like channeling as well in the sense that God is choosing how you're going to be perceiving the world because you are surrendering your perception. You are surrendering everything, literally everything, your whole entire being and everything in it, everything like as it relates to that, right? So God has complete control over that, and like you are going to be completely blending in, completely camouflaged, also in terms of your eyes. So the way you perceive the world will be as God wants you to perceive it, and you're not going to be a person. You're just going to be part of the web of life. You could say part of you're going to be blending in. You're going to be camouflaging in the sense that there's not going to be a you anymore. So there's no you, there's no ego, there's no you, and your perception is God is choosing the perception. So however you perceive the world, however it's all serving a purpose. So the way you express, the way you act, the way you dress, the way all of it has a purpose. The way you think, the way you structure or not structure your day, and what exactly you do in a day. It's all surrendered to God. Um, the things you prefer in life, your identity, everything is serving God. It's being given to God, and like sacrificed, offered to God, you could say. So that's what I'm receiving. So I'm hoping that this was helpful to you, and I'm wishing you a very, very beautiful day ahead. Bye bye.